Hey folks, Paul here with iCrack.com, and today we are going to walk you through repairing your Verizon CDMA iPhone 4. Before we begin, let's just power down this device and I will intro you to the tools and everything we have here. First we have our step-by-step flow chart, which is going to walk you through the steps of repairing your device. As well as the tools. We have a Penelope screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, a nylon spudger, a cleaning cloth, and SIM card opening tray tool. All of these come in your do-it-yourself toolkit. A few extras I have here are a pair of tweezers and a small 2-inch blade, which you can use any other small pocket knife to replace. Just a note before we begin, this is a Verizon CDMA iPhone 4. When the 4S was released, customers began being able to have Sprint on their iPhone 4. If you have a Sprint iPhone 4, this is the same device and this is the video you want to be watching. So let's begin. First step, we're going to take our Penelope screwdriver and remove the two bottom Penelope screws. Now on our flow charts, we do have areas designated for you to place your screws and other small parts throughout the repair, just to keep everything organized. Once you remove those two bottom screws, just simply push up the back like that and pull it off. And there you have it. We'll set that aside. Now before we begin, let me just go over a few things. As you can see, right here is your battery, and this is where it connects to the logic board. Got your bottom speaker here, your camera. This is where all the connections to the logic board are, also right here, and you can kind of see the vibrating motor under there. Now, the first step is, of course, going to be removing the battery. We've got one Phillips head screw right here that we're going to remove. And then we're going to use our spudger to lightly lift up the battery clip that's connecting to the logic board. Just like that. Once you do that, we're then going to remove the battery from the mid frame. There is a little bit of adhesive on the other side of this, so we'll go ahead and use our nylon spudger and pry in between the mid frame and the battery. You will be able to hear the adhesive coming up as you do this. So that was fairly simple. We'll go ahead and set that aside. Right here, this is a little piece of plastic that you can use to pull your battery up like this. It does tear the majority of the time though, but to get it out of our way, we're just going to fold it over and stick it to the mid frame just like that. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove this small EMF shield right here. There are two Phillips head screws, so we'll go ahead and get those out. Now this right here is the charging port and dock assembly flex. There is going to be a little adhesive behind here, so we'll go ahead and pop that up, peel it back, and then fold it over to get it out of our way. So it just pops up like that, and we'll peel it back just like that. So now we can go ahead and see that there is a ground clip covering the antenna right here. It's held by one Phillips head screw. So we're going to go ahead and remove this screw and clip. Next step, we're going to go ahead and remove the upper EMF shield. There are 5 Phillips head screws on this shield. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What I like to do is remove them in that order from left to right, and keeping them in that order so you know when you come back you can go the opposite way and every screw will go where it's supposed to. This screw right here is the largest out of these 5 screws. Now that we've unscrewed these screws, we'll go ahead and remove the EMF shield. The shield does have 2 little clips that slide in right under here, and then also a clip that goes right here, and it's behind this cable. There is a little adhesive in between the shield and this cable, so you do want to be careful pulling this out. We'll go ahead and use our spudger to pull it up just like that. There's your EMF shield. Now that we've removed the EMF shield, we're going to go ahead and disconnect a few of these connections. Let's do the camera first, right here. So we'll just use our spudger tool to pry up and pull that right out. Now when doing this, you do want to be careful, as this area of the logic board has a lot of very minute jumpers that are micro soldered onto the logic board. There's always a possibility that one of these can get knocked off with your spudger, so you do want to be careful, as this requires a micro soldering to put those back on. Before we remove these, let's go ahead and take out this one last clip right here that is covering this second antenna. It's held down by one Phillips head screw. Now that all the connections are exposed, let's go ahead and unclip them. We use our spudger just to gently pry under them, and they should pop off just like that. Those are your LCD and digitizer connections from your screen. And there you go. Let's go ahead and also unconnect this antenna down here that we've left connected. This will give us the ability to remove the logic board once we unscrew it. So you just want to pop that off. You do want to be gentle with this. At any point in time, it is easy to bend this little connection right here, and that can affect your service once you put it back together, whether or not your phone is picking it up or not. So what we're going to do is remove the screws from the logic board. There are 2 Phillips head screws and 3 flathead screws. The 3 flathead screws are right here, here, and here. So let's go ahead and remove those now. Now your 2 Phillips head screws are right here under this black sticker and right here. We're going to go ahead and use a pair of tweezers to peel up this black sticker and expose the Phillips head screw. Now as you can see, this screw is holding a ground clip right there. So when we unscrew this, we'll take the ground clip with us. And that's your ground clip right there. We'll take out this one last Phillips head right down here. As you can see, the logic board is now loose, and you are ready to remove it. Now, we're going to pull it up from the bottom just like this, and lift up, and then pull it outward. Always being careful not to disrupt the connections or flex cables too much. So there you have it. Now, very quickly, there is a small piece of rubber right here. It's normally right here on this edge of the logic board. This is simply to prevent any disruptive abrasion between this edge of the logic board and your flex cables right here. Now, let's go ahead and remove the bottom speaker. It's held by two Phillips head screws, one right here and one right here. This has a small black triangular piece of plastic that serves as a washer slash wedge to kind of keep everything in place, so when we pull that out, we'll take that with us. And here's this piece of plastic I'm referring to. Now the bottom speaker should just pop right out. You're going to want to lift it from the top and pull it out like that. And so there's your bottom speaker right there. Now that you have all the internal components out that you need, we're going to want to remove these screws around the mid frame to loosen up the screen so we can remove it. Now there are 4 screws in the corners, as well as 6 along the sides. Now the 6th one right here, you can see, is behind the vibrating motor. We'll get to that one last. Let's remove the 4 corner screws first. Now, one of them in this corner does have a piece of black tape over it, just like that ground clip did. We're going to go ahead and remove that. Those stickers are inconsequential, and it is okay to throw them away. Now, these are small screws. There's no rush here. You just want to be patient so you can hold on to all of them. As for the 6 screws along the sides, they each have a washer behind them. It is not necessary to completely remove them. So what we're going to do is just give them a few twists and loosen them, but keep them where they are. Now for this 6th screw, it is behind the vibrating motor. As you can see, there's nothing keeping the motor down minus a small amount of adhesive on the underside. The way the vibrating motor works is it uses these 2 contacts right here and wedges underneath the logic board when it's screwed down, and that's how current is able to travel to it and make it vibrate. To kind of get behind this and get to this screw, we're going to go ahead and use a heat gun to apply a little heat to the adhesive. This is just your standard heat gun. We do sell this on our website, but a hair dryer will suffice. So we'll just give it a little heat to loosen up that adhesive. Nothing too special. Now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and use our Phillips head as kind of a lever and push it aside just like that, so we can get the Phillips head screwdriver in the screw head and loosen it up. Now if it moves any farther or comes off, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, the only thing that's keeping it to the mid frame is a small amount of adhesive. If you take it off, you'll simply just place it in the exact same spot. Now that all the screws are loose, it's time to remove the screen. Just a note, the home button is going to stay connected to the mid frame. This is actually where the home button flex cable comes through the frame and connects to the charging port. On the 4S, however, this button comes out with the screen and is separate, so you'll need to remember to switch that out when you do a 4S repair. This, however, is going to just stay there, and we'll be able to reuse that original home button. Now, before we remove the screen, there is a little bit of adhesive right here at the top, as well as down here at the bottom. Just to make it easier and to prevent more cracking and glass potentially going everywhere, we're going to apply a little heat just around the phone, and then use a small blade to lift up the screen. So let's go ahead and give this a little heat. Now we're going to go ahead and use our little blade. We do also offer the iSesamo pry tool, which works just as well. Doing it. It really is up to you, whichever one you want to use. Both the iSesamo and the Gerber can be found on our website. We're going to start in this bottom corner, sliding the blade gently in between the mid frame and the screen and lifting up just like that. Now, there is always the potential for glass to be left behind. Generally, if there is a lot of cracking around here and here, it can remain behind on the adhesive, which I will show you here in a second, and you will have to remove that. But you always want to be careful. You know, this is glass, and there is always the potential to cut yourself when removing the broken screen. We're going to go ahead and pull the LCD and digitizer cables right through the midframe, just like so. And there you have it. Like I said, the home button is still there. It simply sits in a little well, just like that. And you know, like I pointed out earlier, the flex cable travels through the midframe and connects right there. So we don't have to worry about the home button, which is nice. Now here we have our replacement screen. It's exactly the same. We do have a protective film on the back of the LCD, which you are going to want to remove before you seat the screen. Now just a small detail, nothing too special. There is a plastic ring that sits around the front facing camera and holds it in place. It really doesn't move that often, but you know, it's always good, and we kind of like to preach that we put everything back in its original condition. So we're going to go ahead and take this little circle ring off the existing screen and go ahead and reseat that right back around the front facing camera. It just sits right there. Back to whether or not you have a lot of glass adhering to the frame after you remove the screen. You're obviously going to want to make this as clean as possible before you seat the new screen, otherwise it won't seat correctly. If you do have a lot of glass here, you can always take your blade or pry tool and lift up under the adhesive and use the adhesive to pull all that glass off. And it'll go ahead and it'll come right off with that adhesive. This area you also want to make sure is very clean. You don't want any debris wedging itself between the LCD and here, as it will ruin the image. So let's go ahead and take our screen. So we'll take that protective film off, and you can see you've got a brand new LCD. On the note of the screen, digitizer being one piece with the LCD, this is how these are manufactured for the iPhone 4 and 4S. So that is why they come as one full assembly, which is obviously different from the 3G and 3GS, where the digitizer and LCD can be switched out and repaired separately. So now we're going to want to feed these two cables, the LCD and digitizer cable, through the midframe right here and carefully seat the screen onto the midframe. Another note, when doing this, as you can see, the digitizer cable has a small loop right here, and this can get caught when feeding the screen or when feeding these cables through the midframe. When you do this, you absolutely want to make sure that this loop feeds all the way through, and that once you're done, the cables are the same length, just like this. Because if not, they won't be the same length, and the digitizer cable will not reach around and be able to connect to the logic board. When this happens, the cable is actually pinched between the screen and the midframe, and it can damage the cable when that happens. So we're going to go ahead and feed this through. Now, to work with that loop, as you can see it right there. We'll go ahead and use our nylon spudger to press down and make sure it gets all the way through. And you just want to be very gentle when you're doing this. Just kind of feel it out. So there you have it. Those top 2 pins are in, the cables are through, and it's time to finish seating the screen. Now, another detail, these side screws do have washers. It's very easy, as you can see when you first slide it in, for the pins to squeeze between the screw and the washer. This does not affect the screen, but going back to what I said earlier, we want to put everything back the way it was, and so we're going to be very careful and make sure that those pins are behind both the screw head and the washer. And you can use your spudger to guide these pins in, just like so. And there you have it. So all the pins are in, everything looks good, everything looks flush. You know, it's going to be loose obviously until you put those screws in, but you know, you just want to take a look before you start doing that, make sure everything's in place, and you're ready to move in the reverse of the steps provided on the flowchart and start reassembling your device. So the first thing we're going to do with the screws is we're going to put the 4 corner screws in first before tightening the 6 screws on the frame. This is, you know, a little trick we have, because sometimes when you tighten these 6 screws first, the pins are a little misaligned, and it makes getting the 4 corner screws, which are much smaller, fairly difficult. So we'll go ahead and put the 4 screws in first. Now that we have all 4 of our corner screws in, screen's looking nice and flush, let's go ahead and tighten the side screws. All right, now that the screws are tightened, let's just continue moving backwards. Go ahead and make sure that the vibrators push back up, just so, you know, makes it putting everything else in that area in easier. We're going to go ahead and take our bottom speaker and drop that in first. You're going to put it in the bottom, put the bottom in first, and then simply set that down. Now, there are metal clips right here. You're just going to want to push those in and make sure that they go behind this small edge right here in the mid frame. Once you do, it'll fall right in. And so let's go ahead and put these screws back in. We'll put the one on the right in first. And we will grab the triangular piece and drop it right down in there. Just like that. Let's go ahead and bend these cables from the screen, the LCD and digitizer cable. And I like to lift up with this finger and press down with my other and just kind of sit them right on in the mid frame, just like that. It makes it easier on putting the logic board in. You do want to be gentle with those though. They are fragile. So now let's go ahead and put the logic board in. We're going to do it the opposite way that we pulled it out. We're going to go top in first and then set it down just like so. So let's move these flex cables out of the way. Get the logic board right in there. Let's also make sure our antenna right here is out of the way. Just like that. We've got all 3 flex cables out of the way. So let's go ahead, make sure it's in there nice and firm. Just be gentle with it. And set that right in. You actually want to keep holding the top of the logic board down because it can come out pretty easily. And there you go. Seated in there just right. And so we can begin screwing the screws back in to hold it down. Let's go ahead and screw the three flathead screws in first, here, here, and here. You're going to want to do this corner first and be very gentle when doing it. And screw it in slowly. This screw, if it's not, if it doesn't feel right going down, or if the logic board's moving too much, this is going to be the first indication that there's either something under it or it's just not pushed in all the way. So you want to be gentle with this screw when screwing it in. And just make sure it's nice and snug, just like that. So let's go ahead and screw in this flathead screw right here at the bottom, second. We'll grab our screw. Just like so. Now this one, it can be a little tricky. If you're having any troubles, just getting it lined up, using the Phillips head is a nice little trick to get it going. But here we got it in just fine. Let's go ahead and tighten it up. And the last flathead is going to go in the very middle. There you go. Now let's go ahead and put in the two Phillips head screws. We'll take our tweezers and we will grab the small grounding clip that goes right here in the corner. We'll simply just lay that down. And we'll grab our last Phillips head screw. Screw that through the logic board and vibrating motor. Just like that. Now we can go ahead and put all of these clips back on. When doing so, you want to be very careful and press with light pressure. You will hear a clip for all of these, so that's just kind of what you're feeling around for. You don't want to force it as damaging any of the teeth in the connectors on the logic board can keep you from finishing this repair. And do that one. Just kind of want to feel it around just like that. Get this one in, like so. Let's grab our camera and slide that in as well. Just kind of want to drop it in like there. Get that connection. Everything's feeling good. Let's reconnect this antenna down here while we're at it. You are going to feed it back through these two little clips, and then you're going to want to gently press down on it and make sure it connects. You're also going to be looking or listening for a small snap. You should be able to feel it as well. Now that's in, let's go ahead and put the clip in over this antenna, just like that. Put this one screw in. Like so. Let's also place the clip back over the antenna. And you're just going to lay it right over it, just like that. And take your one screw and screw that down. We can also connect this now. There you go. Now before we put any of the EMF shields back on, we're going to go ahead and put the battery in and power it up to test it out. You know, if there are any issues, you won't have to go back through and remove all the shields to get back into the device and fix these issues. So let's go ahead and pull this back. We'll grab our battery here. We'll pop it right in. We won't have to screw it in or anything. We're just gonna, do this merely to test. Let's go ahead and power on the device. There we go. We've got our Apple logo, so it is booting up. As we can feel here, the home button feels just fine. It's making a good firm click. So everything's working there. The digitizer is working. At our vibrator, you can see it's in airplane mode. The Wi-Fi is on. Power button, home button working. Everything looks good. Let's go ahead and power it back off and finish the repair. So let's unclip the battery, just so no power is being sent through the logic board and there's no potential for shorting anything. We can just leave it like that. That's okay. We'll go ahead and put in the upper EMF shield first. As you can see, it does have these two clips right here and the one I mentioned earlier that has a little adhesive on the back. We're going to slide it in like this with the two clips at the bottom end first. And then we're going to make sure that this clip goes in between the cable and the logic board. You don't want the cable to be on the inside of that, because that can puncture it and ruin the functionality of that ribbon cable. So once you've kind of got it in there, just lightly push it in and you'll get a little snap in there. So then we're going to have to put these 5 screws back in. Just a note, if they got moved around at all or anything like that, these are the same size. This one is the larger screw, and we indicate that on the flow chart. So let's go in the reverse direction that we did. Now I've got that EMF shield on. Let's go ahead and place this one on as well. So that's it. Let's go ahead and reconnect the battery actually and put this one last screw in. And there you have it. We can go ahead and power on the device. And while it's booting up, let's go ahead and put the back cover back on. Just put it in like that. Slide it down. And let's put in these 2 pentalobe. Oh, the camera came on. It's all right. And there you have it, folks. That is your Verizon CDMA iPhone 4 screen and LCD repair. If you have any questions or problems, please give us a call on our 877 number or visit our website, icrack.com. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you soon.